Somebody pick a random note out of the 12. F sharp's a good one. That's tricky because the F sharp major scale. Now you might want to glance at that scale practice sheet that I had you pull out so you can see what the F sharp major scale is. Okay. Somebody give me a random interval. Anybody? Don't go easy. Major fifth is a wrong answer because there's no such thing as a major fifth. If you'll let me correct you, because they're only perfect fifths. Now, well, let me go ahead and mention this because you said major fifth. Yeah, they're only perfect fifths. There's no such thing as a major fifth. I'll go ahead and do the fifth, and we'll come back to seventh. Okay. So a perfect fifth above F sharp. How many half steps in a perfect fifth? 7. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to this note, which happens to be what? C sharp's the right answer. So perfect fifth means it's on the major scale. So if you look at your scale reference sheet, F sharp, second scale degree G sharp, third scale degree A sharp, then B. Fifth scale degree is C sharp. So F sharp up to C sharp on this string, on the E string. But I can also get a C sharp on the A string. A, B flat, B, C, C sharp. Boom, there's my perfect fifth. And that fifth, that's the power chord we referenced earlier. So you can take those two notes, that fifth, and create almost every rock and roll song in the world. And so forth. That's just moving a fifth around. It's just moving the power chord for that old classic Smoke on the Water. Right? Now, give me another random note. Dave, random note. Did you say D? E is an eggplant, a typical guitar player choice. I recommend it highly. Okay? And you said a seventh. You want major or minor? Major seventh above E. How many half steps? Now, a major seventh is 11 half steps on the fretboard, but it's the 7th scale degree on the scale reference sheet. Right? It's 11 half steps, but it's the 7th scale degree. So if you're looking at your scale reference sheet and you see the scale E, and you said, I want to do a major 7th, well, you just go to the 7th column and boom, there it is. And that note is a D sharp. Okay? But if we went up 11 frets, we'd find it the same way. If we went up an octave or 12 frets and then backed it down one or diminished it by a half step, we get there the same way. So we're going from E to D sharp. Here's E, open. Here's my 12th fret. This would be 11th fret. But I can also get that D sharp 1 fret above the D string. Here's the D string. Here's the 1 fret above. D sharp. So if I play the D sharp fretted and the E open, now I hear a major 7th. Which sounds a little weird by itself, but in the musical context, it's one of the most gorgeous intervals there. Right? So, let's do a couple more. Random note, Grant Beckman. Random note, any of the 12. B flat's a good one. Now, Daniel Guevara, only because I'm picking on you tonight. I've decided I'm going to pick on you tonight. Okay? Random interval. Easy or hard doesn't matter. Pick an interval. It could be blue, it could be black. Just pick one.
Perfect fifth.
Perfect fifth is good. Let's do. Now, if you're looking at the scale practice sheet, you can glance at the B flat major scale. The fifth scale degree is B flat C D E flat F 1 2 3 4 5. It's an F. You can also get there by saying there's 7 half steps from B flat to F. Okay. So there's our perfect fifth. Now I'm going to choose one. How about a minor second? We haven't done a minor second yet, right? So how about a minor second with E? Because I know that David likes E. Well, let me show you this. E on this top string from the player's perspective, open, is that E right there. A minor second is how many half steps? 1 half step, right? Minor second is 1 half step. So I only need to go 1 fret up. Now here's where the fretboard can get even more fun. Because I can take an open string that's lower in pitch than an adjacent string that might be higher in pitch, but make a higher note with it. Okay? So I could take my B string to put the E on. B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp. Here's my E. And I could make E here and F over here and make my minor second like this. But where the fretboard makes it even more fun is I can reverse that. And now I can make the F be here. Now I'm on the 6th fret of B string, making an F, and I can play an open E, and it sounds like this. So I can play it either way. There's an F here with an E open, or an F here with an E fretted. I can get the same result either way. Now, guitar purists will say it's a slightly different tonality because the strings are slightly different lengths and maybe of different types of metal, so they'll slightly sound different. And they're right, but in general, for music making, you've got more options to make those kinds of intervals on the fretboard. With the keyboard, you kind of just, here's your 2 buttons and you're there, right? So this opens up a lot more possibilities, even though the complexity sometimes can keep us down with the music theory thing. I love this, doing this right here. Now what I got going on here is a D sharp on the B string, and a half step or a major second above that is the open E. So you've got the D sharp and the E, which right here sounds kind of ugly, but in the context with some other harmony, sounds really nice. So don't shy away from minor seconds or major sevenths or those that the interval by itself sounds weird because it's out of context. All are available for good music making, right? Brett has a good question. I'm going to move over here.
Okay.
Unless it's a fretboard question.
Yeah, right now,
I'll stay here.
we're doing intervals in like 2 notes at the same time.
Yes.
So what's the difference between interval and chord?
Gotcha. The question is, right now we're doing intervals that are 2 notes at the same time. So what's the difference between an interval and a chord? And as we're going to find out in Module 5 and further next week, a chord is defined by 3 or more notes being played together. Okay? Sometimes when I mentioned earlier, there was that thing that the guitar players call a power chord. And that's more of a convention. Everybody says that. Technically, in music theory, just 2 pitches is not a chord. It's only an interval. But the intervals are the building blocks of chords. So once we've learned all these intervals, then we're going to take all these intervals and build them into all the different types of chords that are out there. Yeah? Make sense? Good question. So the tritone is a special interval. It's the only one we haven't covered yet. If you'll notice on my little chart back here that I had left out, if we started from C, I'd left out the interval between F and G. We did 5 half steps, we did 7, we didn't do the one in between. So we're going to do that now. The distance between C and F sharp is 6 half steps, and it has a few different names to it. One is the tritone. Sometimes we'll put 2 capital T's. Another is the diminished 5th, and the other is the augmented 4th. Okay? Now the tritone has the most tension built into it in and of itself of any other interval. We talked at the very beginning, the perfect interval, that they were very consonant, harmonious, stable. Okay? The opposite of a perfect interval is the tritone. The tritone is the most unstable. It's the most dissonant. It's the most interval that wants resolution. It wants movement out of it. It wants to be changed. It doesn't like to stay where it is. It's the most tension. Okay? Now, the word tritone, if you remember at the very beginning of the course, we talked about that. We use the terms half steps and whole steps. But other people around the world, more British people and that kind of thing, will use the term tone and semitone to mean the same thing. Okay? So a tone is like a whole step, and a semitone is like a half step. So a tritone, as we're starting to learn, is composed of 6 half steps. You could also describe that as 3 whole steps. And if you use the other terminology, 3 tones. Hence the word tritone. Make sense? But if you use half steps and whole steps all the time, you never really see the word tone come in except for tritone. So you do see this term all the time. Okay? Now, what's funny, because of the instability of it, the church at several different periods historically has outlawed the usage of the tritone. It was the devil's interval, and I've got a little thing in the notes there. And if you're curious, this is not part of the required portion of the class. If you're curious, click the link that's in the notes there or type it out, where there's a little bit of a history on how the the interval, what is it? The diabolus in musica, which meant the devil in the music, which was a tritone. What's amazing is how so many composers deftly inserted tritones in their music that was meant for the church in ways that masked that they were even there subtly in order to bring the tension. Because music, and this is one you can put on your refrigerator, music is all about creating and releasing tension. Music is all about creating and releasing tension. And if the church says that you're not able to use a tritone, it's really taking away a lot of your ability to create tension that you could thus release.